Let's get a perspective on West Virginia for someone who has lived and worked in coal country for quite some time. Joining us on the line now is Jason Bostic, who is the Vice President of the West Virginia Coal Association. Jason, welcome to 1A.
Good morning, Joshua. Thank you for having me.
What do you make, before we talk a little bit more about West Virginia specifically, what do you make of this proposed change from the Trump administration, the ACE rule? What do you think?
Well, Joshua, probably the first thing to observe is, unlike the Clean Power Plan, the ACE plan proposed by the Trump administration is legal, in that it keeps EPA in its lane of traffic, if you will, relative to emissions control, versus the Clean Power Plan, which would have placed EPA in charge of the entire electricity market in this country, from the power plant all the way up to the wall plug. And despite what some of your other guests have said this morning, it was about market manipulation. You can't mandate massive reductions in emissions without some level of market manipulation. Coal-fired generation is still relatively affordable, and it was even more affordable before other illegal regulations were promulgated by the Obama administration. And the current situation we find ourselves in the electricity market, it's not so much that natural gas became cheap, it's that coal became so expensive. Other Clean Air Act regulations across the country have driven the cost of coal-fired power up by about 71% across the board.
Can you help me understand the market manipulation argument? I mean, I hear you on one sense in terms of keeping the government in its proper place. On the other hand, government is involved in all kinds of industries, whether it's subsidies to farmers to deal with crop prices or milk prices. I mean, that's not entirely unprecedented. If there is a prevailing national interest in reducing pollution, in doing something about keeping our air clean, what's actually wrong with that?
Well, Joshua, that assumes that Congress had authorized EPA to have that authority, and they didn't. The nation's electric grid is managed by statute, again by mandate of Congress, by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, not the Federal Environmental Protection Agency. And to install what is an environmental protection agency into a system of balancing electric needs and demand across the country would have turned that system, I think, and many others think, and I also believe the U.S. Supreme Court thought this as well, otherwise they wouldn't have taken the unprecedented step to stay the rule. That's not the role for EPA.
So if it had been coming from FERC rather than EPA, you'd be cool with it?
No, Joshua didn't say that. We have to look at the underlying statutory authority. And again, if Congress intends to give these agencies that power, it certainly knows how to do that. But until that time, then the regulatory agencies, whether it's EPA or FERC or any other one for that matter, needs to stay in their lane of traffic. And the Affordable Clean Energy Rule does that, and actually does it much more effectively, I think, with respect to carbon reduction than the Clean Power Plan would have, by recognizing that the easiest, most surefire way to reduce carbon emissions from coal-fired or other fossil fuel-fired generators is through efficiency improvements. That is, let's extract as much energy as we can for a pound or a ton of coal that you consume, or a million BTU of natural gas, or whatever the fossil fuel might be. It's to extract as much energy as possible from the fuel to supply as much electricity as possible with the lowest possible cost. It's not to mandate Byzantine trading schemes and create imaginary markets for carbon trading that don't exist. To me, that smacks of Enron-type market manipulation.
I wonder if we could get into some of the other concerns about the current path for regulating coal and carbon, including to David's comment regarding air pollution not stopping at state borders. We should note that you have expressed high skepticism in some of the science behind the talk of climate change in the past, but I wonder what your view is in terms of dealing with air pollution, coal, climate change, and whether this rule would help.
I think it will help, Joshua. Let me first, I will acknowledge the fact that as far as man-made climate change and its ability to impact world climate, I am a skeptic. And I'm especially a skeptic when it's approached from a political process standpoint, in that whether it's the Paris Climate Accords or the Clean Power Plan or any of these other international or state or U.S. approaches, where pollution becomes a political issue.
I'm going to stop you there. Let's keep this on a scientific level. I mean, I think the science for climate change is sound. We're not going to debate that today. What I'm wondering is whether or not you think that the ACE rule would actually help in reducing pollution from coal.
Well, Joshua, first off, you asked me my opinion about the science, and to say that it's sound is also just as much your opinion. But yes, I do believe.
We're not going to debate the science behind climate change. I'm sorry, sir. We're not going there. There is a consensus internationally from scientists around the world that there is no other vector for the rise in carbon in the atmosphere that would equal the impact of human beings on the environment. That science is solid, and that's a debate for another day. I'm just asking you whether you think that this rule will help.
Yes, sir, I do. I do. I think it acknowledges the best way to control carbon emissions from a fossil fuel-fired generating station is through heat efficiency improvements and the deployment of technology that allows that to happen.
Jason, give us a sense of what coal as an industry means to the people who you deal with in West Virginia. We've heard in the past on this program that folks who work in coal mining take a great deal of pride in the work that they have done, and in some cases that their family has done for several generations.
That's absolutely true, Joshua. I myself am a shining example of that. For generations since we came to this country, we've been mining coal somewhere in Appalachia. And it does carry with it a great deal of pride because coal miners are truly skilled craftsmen. And a lot like astronauts, especially when you're an underground coal miner and you're extracting a valuable resource, you're literally going where no man has ever gone before. So there is a great deal of pride attached to that. In addition to that, this is West Virginia. We are the second largest coal-producing state in this country. And we produce both thermal coal for electricity generation and metallurgical coal for the manufacturing of steel. And